The story begins as we see a hero defeating the demon lord, leading the humans to victory and all of mankind celebrating. But after 3 months in the demon realm, we see the demons are holding a tournament to see who will be the next demon lord. However, we see a man named Helck participating in the tournament, and he takes out his opponents with just his bare hands. We meet Vermilio, the organizer of the tournament and one of the 4 demon generals. Her assistant Han shows her footage from the preliminary rounds, and he notes that the participants have an average level of 45, which is a record high for them, so Vermilio has high expectations. But when she starts watching the fights, she soon notices Helck. Han notes that Helck is the favorite to win, but Vermilio starts freaking out, wondering why a human was allowed to participate. Han mentions anyone was allowed to participate, but Vermilio thinks it should have been obvious that humans weren't allowed since they are their mortal enemies. Han tells her not to worry, showing her Helck's victory interview, where he claims to despise humans, and that he wants to destroy them all. Vermilio thinks he's obviously lying, thinking they are in trouble, but Han reveals the deep green contract, which all participants have signed, and it nullifies all attacks that are made against people outside the ring. Vermilio is still suspicious, and thinks Helck's plan must be to take out all their potential demon lord candidates, but as she watches his fight, Helck helps his opponent up, and even compliments him. Vermilio gets pissed off, wondering what he's after, and she thinks that the demons would never accept him, but we see the crowd cheering for him. Vermilio loses it, setting the castle on fire, and she tells Han that they need to eliminate Helck, but Han tells her that the deep green contract also nullifies attacks made against the participants, and he adds that Helck is level 99, so Vermilio ends up blowing up the tower in frustration. Vermilio thinks Helck is definitely going to win since he's so strong, but Han suggests they can change the format of the tournament, saying they could make the next round a card stacking competition, and he even plans to give Helck the more glossy cards. Meanwhile, in the human realm, we meet Asta, a demon spy working for Vermilio, who is on a mission to find out more about Helck. But when she investigates the village, she doesn't find a single person. Back at the arena, the participants are given a desk and deck of cards as the next round begins. The announcer explains that only the top 10 will advance, and we see Helck struggling. Vermilio gets excited seeing this, but Helck suddenly puts his hands together, trying to focus. He raises his hands, creating a powerful gust of wind and knocking down everyone else's card stack. He assembles his house with incredible speed, and he is the first to complete the challenge. Vermilio claims that he broke the rules, so he should be disqualified, but a participant named Kenrose disagrees, thinking that building a house of cards was just an analogy for building up your castle while wiping out your opponents, testing both offense and defense. The other participants believe his explanation, and the arena erupts into chaos as they all start trying to destroy each other's house of cards, while Vermilio burns with rage as she thinks this is all a part of Helck's plan to get the other candidates to fight each other. Meanwhile, we see Asta report back to her twin sister, Ista. We learn that the sisters possess a special ability to telepathically communicate, through fulfilling the condition that they both drink coffee. Asta wonders about the tournament, and we see that Helck is dominating every contest despite Vermilio's attempts to make him lose. Vermilio decides to disguise herself as one of the judges so she can deliberately lower his score, but it's a cooking round, and Helck prepares an amazing dessert. As Vermilio tastes it, she is just unable to resist, and she gives him a perfect score, allowing Helck to move on to the semifinals. We see Helck messing around with Kenrose, refusing to show him a picture, while Hyura, one of the other candidates, thinks they're both idiots. Kenrose manages to grab the picture, and we see it's Helck with his brother Class. Meanwhile, Ista reports to Vermilio the information her sister has gathered, and it turns out Helck has a huge bounty on his head, and is considered the worst criminal in all of human history, because he killed his own brother, who was the hero that defeated the Demon Lord. Ista goes on to mention that her sister visited 3 towns, and all of them were abandoned. But at that moment, Han frantically rushes in, and reports that Castle Urim has fallen. Vermilio thinks the humans are responsible, but Han tells her that Urim was attacked by strange winged knights, and that the Lord sacrificed himself to save his people. Vermilio and Ista become worried that the humans may know about their capital, and that they might be attacked next. Vermilio is determined to get rid of Helck, and we learn that they've planned a race as the next contest. Han tells her that he has prepared a unique steed for Helck. The participants enter the arena on their steeds, and we see that Helck is mounted on a small, adorable beast. Vermilio worries that this might cause Helck's popularity to spike, and we see that the audience cheers for Helck even more. The announcer named Rocco explains that there are several traps on the course, and the first 4 racers to arrive back in the arena will move to the finals. The race begins, and all the participants start off, leaving Helck behind. Helck struggles to get his steed to move, as Hyura thinks that the management screwed Helck over on purpose. Helck gets off his steed as the front runners enter the obstacle course. He tries to encourage it and inspires it with motivational words. We see the other racers going through the obstacle, while many get taken up by the traps, as we learn Han made it extra hard to make sure they get rid of Helck. Hyura tries to take out Kenrose, who is in the lead, and Han is certain that the next Demon Lord will be one of them. Helck suddenly zooms across the track, and we see that he is running along his steed. Vermilio urges that he be disqualified for cheating, but Han says they can't do it, assuring her that the obstacle course will take him out. But Helck overcomes the obstacle course with ease, breaking the traps in the process and annoying Vermilio. They panic, thinking the suspension bridge might be a good way to make Helck lose the race, so they plan to rig the bridge to explode when Helck is in the middle of it and cover the rest in oil to make him slip. However, as the staff is rigging the bridge, one of them slips on the oil and crashes into the explosives, causing the bridge to explode prematurely. Vermilio is furious, telling Han that the plan wouldn't work unless the bridge explodes while Helck is on it. True to her word, Helck leaps all the way across to the other side, and we see that he is now carrying his mount. Helck quickly closes the gap and runs past the frontrunners. Kenrose is inspired by Helck's speed, so he gets off his horse, claiming he has the fastest legs in the Empire, and he sprints ahead. Kenrose closes the gap with Helck, and the two race toward the finish line. It's a close call, but Helck manages to take the win. Helck praises Kenrose, and the crowd cheers for them as they celebrate. Ista enters the office with news, and tells Vermilio what the reconnaissance squadron reported back. We learn that they sent spies into Castle Urim, but the spies didn't see any humans in the castle. The squadron also reported that there were 103 winged knights in the castle, along with their leader. Vermilio is surprised that the knights captured Urim despite their small numbers. The winged knights are a mystery to them, but she is convinced that they are from the human realm. As she tries to figure out what to do, Azudra, one of the other 4 demon generals, appears. We learn that Vermilio is filling in for Azudra because he was badly injured. Azudra tries to propose an idea, but collapses midway. However, he continues on and suggests that the final match of the tournament be to retake Castle Urim, saying that this way, they can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Vermilio does not trust Helck, and Azudra tells her that his idea will reveal Helck's real motivations, saying they need to know if Helck is a threat. Vermilio asks him what they would do if Helck turns out to be a threat, as she is worried that Helck will turn on them during the battle. Azudra pulls out a deep green ring from his sleeve and explains that it will prevent the competitors from harming one another. Since they don't know what might happen, they decide that they should send someone strong with the competitors, and they agree that it should be Vermilio, as she is determined to risk her life to defeat Helck if he becomes a threat. 5 days later, we see the 4 competitors put on their deep green rings, as Rocco explains the mission. She tells them that one of the management staff will be responsible for keeping them safe, introducing them to Anna, who is actually Vermilio in disguise. Vermilio gives a short speech, and Hyura thinks that she looks familiar. Helck looks at her and recognizes her as the judge from the cooking contest, and she reluctantly shakes his hand. We see Asta in a field deep inside the human realm as she compares it to the Empire. We learn that the Empire is covered in an invisible toxin, and all the people live inside a barrier to stay safe. Meanwhile, Vermilio and the 4 competitors leave for Castle Urim as Asta also embarks on her journey. Hyura dispatches several bug-like creatures, but even more monsters appear around them. Kenrose explains that the monster bugs were created by the toxin covering the land. A horde charges at Hyura as she slices through the monsters. We meet Dorsch, the 4th finalist, as he offers to help, saying he can take care of all the monsters at once. He explains that if he eats beans, he can create an extremely strong barrier. He eats a bean, and a powerful energy starts to radiate from him. As the monsters get closer, Vermilio asks how long the barrier takes to activate, and is shocked when Dorsch tells her it takes 30 minutes. Realizing that 30 minutes would be far too long, she uses her powers to incinerate the monsters. Seeing the display of power, Hyura's suspicions are confirmed. They arrive at a rest area that's protected by a barrier, where Vermilio notices that Helck is not exhausted like the others. She wonders if he has incredible stamina, or if he is immune to the toxin. In a separate room, Kenrose and Hyura discuss Anna. Hyura thinks Anna is actually Lady Vermilio, saying she must be keeping tabs on Helck. At that moment, Vermilio walks past the room and overhears their conversation. She insists that they are mistaken, claiming she is just Anna from the management. She asks them not to mention this to Helck, and Hyura can tell she really is Vermilio. Later, they all have a meal prepared by Helck, and Vermilio is irritated, thinking that Helck is showing off. She unwillingly tries the food, but finds it to be delicious. Back at the capital, Azudra and Han are playing a game. Rocco informs them about the status of the competitors, and tells them that they are taking an underground route towards Castle Urim to avoid a storm. Han adds that the toxin is more potent down there, and spawns too many monsters. Ista is concerned, and suggests sending troops as backup, but Azudra explains that because of how Vermilio's powers work, more troops would only get in her way. He also mentions that reducing the forces at the capital is risky, since the knights could attack at any time. Azudra assures her that Vermilio is quite strong, but admits that he is a bit worried too. In the underground passage, Vermilio tells them not to bother with any monsters that are not directly in front of them as they sprint through the passage. The competitors are about to get surrounded again, as Hyura warns Vermilio of a huge monster behind her. We learn that this particular monster is a New World life form, which appears in places where the toxin is potent. New World life forms attack everything and get stronger through the constant battles. Helck decides to take it on, and the others notice that Helck has a weapon with him now, noting he had been fighting barehanded all this time. Helck jumps up and kicks the monster, sending it flying through a wall. He draws his sword to celebrate the victory, and we see that it's quite small. The monster is defeated with just the kick, and Vermilio burns its corpse to be safe. She wonders if a New World life form appeared in the human realm too, since Helck seemed familiar with what it was. The group comes out of the passage and spots the castle. An intelligence operative reveals himself and leads them to a hidden entrance into the castle. The operative opens the gate, and Vermilio cautions them, reminding them about the rules before they go in. Hyura thinks that Kenrose and Dorsch are pretending to be lazy and planning to jump in at the last minute to take the win. We see that Kenrose actually wants Helck to win, and Dorsch just wants to leave, but Hyura plans to beat Helck by attacking the enemy leader before Helck can make his move. In a flashback, we see Vermilio and Azudra talking about the first time he met Helck. It was just after he had finished creating the deep green contract and was visiting the castle. He saw Helck arrive at the castle and made his way in easily, triggering Azudra's traps, but it had no effect on him, and Azudra ended up getting injured instead. We learn that Azudra trusts Helck because Helck could have killed him if he wanted to. Back in the present, Vermilio still distrusts Helck as they arrive inside the destroyed castle. They spot the knights in an opening, and Hyura tells the others to handle the knights while she fights the leader. Before they can stop her, she rushes toward the leader, and the rest follow behind. They fight off the knights, and Hyura gets close to the leader, when suddenly he attacks with incredible speed, slicing off her arm. The others are shocked as she falls to the ground. The knight leader is about to kill Hyura when Helck calls out his name, Edel. Edel is surprised that Helck was able to recognize him, and he removes his helmet, seemingly pleased to meet Helck. He explains that he managed to retain his personality because of his exceptionally high awakening rate, and that he watched his friends suffer through the awakening process, wishing he had lost his personality instead. Vermilio confirms that the winged knights are humans, and suspects they used sorcery to change their bodies. We learn that Edel gained his powers through the awakening process, and that he grows stronger with each battle. At that moment, countless winged knights approach, as Edel explains that they plan to invade the demon realm. A knight attacks Vermilio, but she instantly burns it, thinking that even with the awakening, a single hero is a much greater threat than the winged knights, but Edel reveals that they have awakened as heroes. We learn that the last hero was born 255 years ago, and Helck and Kless existing at the same time was a surprise to everyone. Vermilio is confused because the knights are not strong enough to be heroes, but fears that they might get stronger with time, and if multiple heroes emerge, then the Empire would be doomed. The knights surround the demons, and as Edel is giving his speech, Hyura sneaks up from behind, slicing his wing off. We see that Hyura has regenerated her arm, as she is a member of the Ahad tribe, which is composed of demons with strong regenerative powers. Hyura engages Edel in combat, as Vermilio guesses that Hyura didn't immediately kill Edel, so that she could get a chance to gauge Helck's allegiance. Hyura fights Edel, and slices off his other wing, thinking that the hero abilities aren't so strong after just awakening. Vermilio realizes that the knights are still weak. She uses a multi-summoning technique to summon massive fire attacks, taking out a number of the knights. She stops herself from blowing all of them up, because she needs to consider the tournament finals. Edel is amazed at her power, and Hyura tells him that she's just a staff member from management, surprising him even further. Hyura lies to Edel, and makes him believe that the Demon Empire is filled with people as strong as Vermilio. She tells Edel to apologize, but he refuses, so she goes to strike him down. However, Helck blocks her sword, and Vermilio thinks he is their enemy. Helck explains that killing winged knights is a bad idea, but at that moment, a feather pierces through Edel's body. We see another winged knight flying over the battlefield, who was the one who attacked Edel. Edel mentions that the pathway was nearly finished, but before anyone can make sense of it, Helck yells for everyone to get back, as the ground collapses beneath them. The group falls into an underground area, and we learn that it contains a barrier stone that keeps the toxins out, and a gate created with an ancient spatial teleportation spell. Kinrose guesses that the human realm lies at the other side of the gate, as the gate starts to draw everything into it. Vermilio explains that the spell has failed, and the gate is out of control, so they need to close it. At that moment, Dorsch activates his barrier to protect them from getting sucked in. He explains that his max power barrier is usually bigger, but the gate is even absorbing his barrier. Vermilio realizes that the gate is drawing power from the barrier stones, and plans to destroy it. She runs out of Dorsch's barrier to reach the stone, and she blasts it, but only manages to make a crack. She prepares to fire again, but she gets hit by debris, and she is about to get sucked in. Helck suddenly appears, and runs toward Vermilio, who blasts the stone again, causing it to break. Helck grabs her hand, but they both get sucked in. The stone shatters completely, and the gate closes. When Vermilio regains consciousness, and wakes up on a beautiful beach, wondering where she is. Vermilio is amazed by the ocean, and thinks they've been transported to the edge of the continent. She stands in the water, and notes that there's no toxin there. She is grateful that she landed in a place with plenty of resources, as she sits by a river, and wonders where Helck is. She finds Helck back at the beach, and we see he has built an entire house. A talking bird distracts Vermilio, and Helck finds her hiding in the bushes. Vermilio doesn't trust him, so she prepares for a fight. Helck explains that he built the house as a base of operation, since they can't get back to the demon realm anytime soon. Helck reveals that they're on an island, and he is certain because he went around the entire area to check. Vermilio wonders if there's a way back, when it suddenly starts raining. Helck and the bird run for the house, while Vermilio thinks that at least the Empire is safe from the threat of Helck. Vermilio refuses to go inside the house, but Helck ends up picking her up, and taking her inside. Helck thinks they should build a boat to get off the island. Vermilio panics, thinking she can't let Helck go back to the demon realm, but has a change of heart when she realizes that Helck has had plenty of opportunities to kill her, but hasn't done it, choosing to help her instead. She wonders if Helck is truly an ally, as they set out to find food. Back at the capital, Azudra wonders about the Hero Awakening spell. He decides to send a search party to find Vermilio, so she can help fight the humans. Han informs him that most of their soldiers are deployed elsewhere, making it impossible to gather a large search party. Azudra tells them that they will use a locator spell to find her, explaining that the spell is a safety measure that will let them track her location. Han says that they need something belonging to Vermilio to perform the spell, as Azudra admits that he tried to take some of Vermilio's hair when she cut it, but failed. Ista tells them that she kept some of Vermilio's hair as part of a custom. They lay out a map, and use the hair in a wooden figure to perform the spell. The wooden figure moves off the map, suggesting that Vermilio is not on the continent. Back on the island, Vermilio is fishing on a rock as she ponders whether she should simply ask Helck about his motive, but imagines that if he reveals himself as the enemy and they fight, she would lose. The talking bird tells her that she has caught a fish, and Vermilio tries to reel it in. She struggles against a small fish, and the line ends up breaking. Helck dives into the water to help catch the fish, but brings back a completely different animal. Vermilio wakes up in the house the next morning and is still unsure of what she should do. A strange man arrives at the door with a half-eaten breakfast. He tells Vermilio that the village chief had sent it for her, and she is surprised that there is a village on the island. Vermilio asks the man to take her to the village, so he shows it to her. They walk around the village, and we learn that these people are the only ones living on the island. The talking bird finds Vermilio and clings to her, informing her that Helck is out trying to build a boat. She rushes to find him before he escapes the island and spots him in the forest. She watches as Helck exudes a strong aura before chopping down multiple trees with a single blow. He ends up breaking his axe and continues chopping down trees with his bare hands. Vermilio and the bird try to hide behind a rock, but Helck finds them. She asks him if he has any new information and is relieved to find that he doesn't. She spots something on a nearby beach and rushes out to discover the ruins of an ancient castle. Helck tells her that they are everywhere and guesses the island may have been prosperous at some point. Helck quickly builds the boat, and Vermilio remarks that the quality of his work is lower than usual. At that moment, the village chief shows up, seemingly upset, and tells them that they need to talk. The village chief leads them into the forest, and they follow him cautiously. They are later surrounded, and the chief reveals that he's brought them to a welcome party. Vermilio admits that she is surprised and appreciates the warm welcome. We learn that Helck has been exchanging his services for supplies from the village to care for Vermilio. The village chief tells Vermilio about the Great Witch, saying she could help them find their way back to the continent. We learn that the Great Witch lives on a mountain and has a wealth of knowledge. Vermilio wants to meet her, but the chief tells her that it's not possible because the mountain is protected by a magical barrier. Vermilio spends the day with the villagers, waiting for the Great Witch to come down from the mountain. She tells Helck that she is mentally exhausted because of the villagers, but appreciates their kindness. Helck compares them to the demons, but Vermilio tells him that demons are evil, mentioning a barbarian tribe that eats people, along with other tribes in the empire. Vermilio asks Helck why he saved her, and he replies that he did it because she was his friend, and that he was grateful that the demons even accepted a human like him. Helck reveals that all his old human friends had become enemies, and that he had been all alone. Vermilio asks Helck if Edel was his friend, and Helck confirms this, saying that Edel was a great person. They head back into the house, and Vermilio asks Helck what he would do when they return, and if he would truly fight the knights, knowing they were his old friends. But he says he has a score to settle. He explains that once a human is awakened, they are no longer human, but simply a weapon that follows the king's orders, and Helck fears they will attack every other race if they aren't stopped. Back at Castle Urim, we see the other competitors fending off monsters, waiting for the management staff to arrive, when suddenly, more winged knights show up. They talk amongst themselves, and Hyura thinks that these knights have high awakening rates because they are able to speak. Hyura tells them that Edel told them everything, so one of the knights asks her if she knows their end goal, asking her where their boss is. Hyura attacks him, but it gets blocked, and she shifts her attention to their archer. A third knight blasts her with a fireball, and she retreats as more knights appear. Hyura and Dorsch plan to fend off the knights and allow Kenros to escape so he can tell the management staff what happened. A voice echoes through the chamber, telling them to stop, and we see Ista and Han appear. Ista jumps down to protect them, slicing through the knights, while Han puts up a barrier for protection. Ista tells them they brought help, and they all make a run for it. The knights chase them to a different area, and they become surrounded. At that moment, Azudra arrives with Rocco. The knights are wary of Azudra, sensing his power, but one of them insults him, causing him to get angry. We learn that Azudra is worried about people fearing him, so he tries to hide his anger. He urges the humans to leave, and suggests that they learn to coexist and avoid fighting. The humans are appalled at the suggestion, but Azudra tells them that they have coexisted peacefully in the past. During his exposition, a knight attacks him, revealing that they were ordered by the king, so Azudra realizes that he has no choice. He unleashes his power as giant vines emerge from the ground, instantly defeating and capturing all of the knights. The humans think that he must be the boss, but Azudra tells them that he is just one of the 4 generals. The group is stunned by Azudra's power, and we learn that he can manipulate any tree in the demon empire, and that he considers himself to be the weakest of the 4 demon generals. Azudra tells the captured knight that he is just another citizen, and that the castles they destroyed were just 2 of many, making the knight think that defeating the demons would be a lot harder than he thought. Azudra urges them to surrender, and a knight remarks that he doesn't sound like a demon, since they thought the demons were supposed to be evil. Ista senses a presence, and an arrow flies toward Azudra, but he deflects it. We see more knights shooting arrows from the castle walls, so Han puts up a barrier for protection. Ista realizes that they are aiming for the captured knights to kill them, and Hyura notes that it's just like what happened to Edel. The other knights disappear, and Azudra asks the surviving knight what happened. We learn that the heroes grow stronger by accumulating experience on the battlefield, and that they are going to endlessly attack the demon empire until they are stronger than all of them. The knight lifts his sword, as he says that heroes don't die, and are born over and over again. He takes his own life, and the knights' corpses disappear from the battlefield. We see them get resurrected inside a castle in the human realm, where we meet the human king, who tells the knights how evil the demons are. We see Asta spying in the castle, confused when she sees the knights magically spawn. She suspects the knights are preparing for a war council as they all fly off again. Back at the battlefield, Azudra shows appreciation for the others, as Han sets up a barrier using a stone to protect them from the toxin. They all rest as Ista receives a message from Asta, informing her about what she saw and confirming that the knights were indeed resurrecting. The group has an emergency discussion to assess the situation, and Rocco explains all the problems the eastern region currently faces, starting with the most important. We see the problems are the disappearance of Vermilio, the human threat, the monsters in the east, the vacant demon lord position, and Helck. Rocco goes on to explain the threat from other nearby powers in the region, with the northern powers being the most worrisome and the humans from the east as the least. The others think that humans are ranked too low, and we learn that humans are the weakest race amongst all the other races, except for their hero. Azudra, taking everything into account, ranks the humans at a threat level greater than SS. We learn that more than half of the Empire's troops are posted at the northern defense line, and if the humans grow stronger, there won't be enough troops to defend against them. Azudra shares a strategy to nullify the humans' ability to resurrect, explaining that the ability comes from a spell, so they should kill the spellcaster, who is the human king. Han asks him how he is so sure, and we learn that a long time ago, Azudra fought a hero capable of reviving, and discovered that it was because of the king's magic. The spell is similar to Azudra's deep green contract, but stronger, and it allows awakened heroes to resurrect at the human king's feet. Ista asks how the human king is able to use such advanced magic, and Azudra figures that they must have another type of awakened being, explaining that if a hero is the combat type, then the king must be a support type. Azudra says that for now, they should prioritize defending against the next attack, and then try to retake the castle. After that, they will send an elite force to kill the human king. We see the demons working to reinforce the castle, as Kenros tells Dorsch that he doesn't like fighting, but Dorsch tells him that they don't have a choice. Hyura and Ista worry about Asta, and we learn that Asta was trained by Hyura. Azudra returns to the place where the gate was hidden, saying the passageway may not have completely disappeared, so if they reopen it, they will find Vermilio. But he says that he can't open a gate big enough for them to get through, so he gives Han some items instead, including a deep green pathfinder, a magic wand that points in the direction of the Empire, along with a letter explaining its function. Azudra opens a small gate, and Han passes the items through it. We see that Azudra is drained and exhausted from opening the gate. On the island, the talking bird discovers the items. We find Vermilio trying to cook a meal, but isn't satisfied with the taste. She notices the fire is about to burn out, and the bird returns with more sticks to burn. We see the bird throwing in the sticks, as well as the items that it found, but Vermilio is just glad that the fire is back. After everything Helck has told her about his past, Vermilio sees him in a new light and is no longer suspicious of him. She is interrupted when a villager comes up to inform her of the Great Witch's arrival at the village. Vermilio runs off, telling the villager to let the others know where she's going. At the village, Vermilio arrives to find out the witch has already left. She's frustrated at herself for being too slow, but Helck enters with the villager, who apologizes and reveals that she is late because he took a nap on his way. The village chief reassures them that he told the witch about their situation and that she has voided her barrier to allow them to visit her. Vermilio and Helck head to the witch's residence with the bird, who we learn is named Pee-wee. When the group gets to the witch's house, they immediately sense the monstrous aura surrounding it. Vermilio is intimidated, but she continues forward. At the top of the mountain, the group is greeted by a creature similar to Pee-wee, and they meet a beautiful woman who we learn is the Great Witch. Helck introduces himself to the witch, who says that since they helped the villagers, she is willing to aid them in getting back home. The witch tells them that the continent they seek lies in the northwest. This intrigues Vermilio as she realizes there may be more continents out there. The witch then looks at Helck, advising him not to rush himself and leave unprepared. She tells them to prepare rations and a sturdy ship to withstand the storms. She also tells them to catch a rare sea creature named the Korstag, to help guide them through a troublesome stretch of the ocean. She shows them what it looks like, and Vermilio realizes it's the creature they caught back at the beach. Helck runs off to catch the Korstag, while the witch offers Vermilio a place to stay for the night. Vermilio confronts the witch, asking about her identity since she is different from the island's residents and seems to possess great knowledge. The witch brushes off her suspicions and instead tells Vermilio to focus on her own problems. She warns her that Helck is far more dangerous than she can imagine, revealing that Helck has the potential to bring about a great calamity. Back at the village, the villagers have finished building and loading the ship, and Helck captures 3 Korstags for the journey but releases 2 of them, keeping 1 for their trip. Helck and Vermilio bid the villagers farewell and thank them for their hospitality throughout their stay. The witch meanwhile explains to Helck that the ship will run with the help of a box that Vermilio's magic can power up. If the box breaks, they will have to row the rest of the way. After saying her goodbyes to Pee-wee, Vermilio is ready to board. The two set off on their journey back as the villagers wave at them. The witch ponders over what choices Vermilio will make but is confident that she will overcome any challenges that she will face. On their journey, Helck mentions how the witch looks like Vermilio, and she admits that she suspects that the witch is from their kingdom but wouldn't tell her anything. Suddenly, Vermilio notices Pee-wee pop out of a barrel, excitedly telling her it decided to come with her. Vermilio is furious, thinking the journey is too dangerous for him, until she sees he has a letter for her. The letter is from the witch and states that Pee-wee would make a great companion for the journey as it has experience traveling with the witch, and its body is surprisingly durable. She also advises Vermilio to relax and pat Pee-wee's fluffy body when she wants to calm down. Helck welcomes Pee-wee on board, but Vermilio is still unconvinced and demands they turn around to send Pee-wee back, when she is suddenly interrupted by a giant octopus that emerges from the ocean. Helck gets ready to fight it, but Vermilio stops him and uses the box to propel them safely away from the monster. She then yells at Pee-wee to return, but Helck convinces her to let it stay, saying he will keep Pee-wee safe. She remembers the witch's advice and agrees on the condition that they send Pee-wee back if it gets too dangerous. The crew continues their journey until they reach the stretch of sea that the witch warned them about. As instructed, they tie the Korstag to the ship and release it into the water, and it takes them in the right direction, leading them safely out of the fog. They continue without much trouble until they encounter a storm and end up being pulled into a whirlpool. The giant octopus also re-emerges to add to their troubles, and Helck gets ready to take it on. The octopus attacks, and Helck recklessly launches himself at it, landing a strong punch. However, it has no effect on the octopus. When Vermilio tries to help, Helck stops her, telling her to escape while he fends off the monster. Vermilio protests at first, but upon seeing Helck's determined look, she decides to listen to him. She guides the ship out of the whirlpool as Helck continues fighting. We see Helck get bitten by the monster as it wraps its tentacles around him. Vermilio watches helplessly as the monster pulls Helck underwater. She desperately calls for Helck to come back up but gets no response. The storm subsides while Vermilio and Pee-wee wait for Helck, finally accepting that he is gone. Vermilio notices the continent in the distance and arrives at the shore, only to find Helck, who somehow survived and made it to the continent before her. Helck apologizes and explains that when he got sucked into the whirlpool after fending off the monster, he tried to escape and found his way to the continent. Vermilio yells at Helck for his recklessness but expresses her appreciation towards him for risking his life for them. She then forbids him from making any solo moves and storms off toward the ship to start unloading. They get their stuff, release the core stag into the sea, and then head further into the continent in search of a village where they can get a map. Vermilio senses a presence and stops, thinking that Helck might be responsible, until a fireball flies at her from the forest. Soon, they are surrounded by the natives who try to capture them. Vermilio notices they are weak and timid and decides to comply with them. The barbarians shackle them with wooden cuffs and lead them to their home. Vermilio notices how the place and its people are in rough shape. The captors explain that the kingdom of Aril used to be peaceful and thriving but was brought down by only 50 barbarians from the Toffman tribe. We learn that the Toffman tribe suddenly powered up, and their king gained unimaginable power. The Toffman tribe took over and cursed the Arilians to look like monsters. They forced the tribe into heavy labor and mercilessly punish anyone who doesn't meet the quota by making them find more slaves. Vermilio realizes they captured her group for the same reason and calls them despicable. The Arilian admits it's wrong, but he is desperate to protect his friends as they run into the Arilian princess. She notices Vermilio's group and demands the Arilian soldiers to release them, telling them that she doesn't approve of their actions, no matter how desperate they are to save the tribe. At that moment, the group hears a rumbling noise, which turns out to be the Toffman tribe and their king marching over to the kingdom earlier than expected. The princess warns Vermilio and the others to leave through the rear gate, or they will be in trouble, but they hide nearby to observe the situation. The princess greets the Toffman king, who tells her he's bored and knocks her down. The Toffman king tells her that he wishes for conquest and wants to use the Arilians as soldiers in his army to take over other kingdoms. The princess protests, saying this goes against their agreement to spare them if they surrender. However, the Toffman king brushes her off, saying that the agreement will hold if they fight and claim victory on the battlefield as well. The princess argues that her people are too weak to fight, but the king demands they get on his wagons or he will massacre them. Helck jumps in and gets between the Toffman tribe and the Arilians, demanding the king to stop. Vermilio joins him, casting a firewall to keep the Arilians safe while Helck prepares to take on the Toffman tribe. The king orders his soldiers to attack, but Helck slaps them away with no trouble. Frustrated at his soldiers being useless against Helck, the Toffman king takes matters into his own hands and faces Helck. He punches Helck, creating a cloud of smoke with its force. Everyone except Vermilio is afraid that Helck has lost. The king then demands Vermilio to tell him where she's from, so he can ravage that place. Vermilio brushes him off, saying she will only fight him if he defeats Helck. Right on cue, Helck emerges from the smoke behind the king. The king is shocked that he survived his punch and launches a flurry of attacks, but Helck is unaffected by them. Helck punches the king back and launches him into the sky, defeating him instantly while everyone marvels at his strength. He demands the king to release the Arilians and never show his face again. The king stubbornly refuses, and Vermilio notices an aura emerge around him. The Toffman king grows in size, becoming more monstrous, and looks menacingly at Helck, who seems unfazed as they get ready to face off again. The king strikes at Helck, but ends up punching the ground as Helck dodges his attack. The king continues screaming and punching the ground, appearing to have completely lost control of himself. Vermilio tells the Arilians to get to safety and leave the situation to her. Vermilio launches a fireball at the king, dismembering his arm, only for it to regenerate immediately. Helck emerges from the cloud and stands in front of the king, while Vermilio feels she is too weak to fight the king herself. Helck punches the king's arm, blowing it off again, and Vermilio is amazed at how powerful Helck is even without using any magic. The king stands paralyzed as his body starts crumbling to dust, and Vermilio realizes the battle is over already. We learn that the king used all of his life energy to boost his power. Vermilio speculates the reasons for the Toffman tribe's power boost, despite there being no toxin covering the land, and feels that something strange is going on. A Toffman soldier surprisingly thanks them, followed by the rest of them before they leave. Vermilio realizes that they were unable to defy their king the whole time. Suddenly, all the Aurelians, having been freed from the curse, start glowing and transforming back to their original forms. The princess announces the end of the Toffman tribe's rule and bows to thank Helck and Vermilio. The princess asks them for their names so her kingdom can remember their heroic deeds and songs and tales, and Pee-wee excitedly tells them. The Aurelians celebrate with the group all night long, chanting their names in praise. The next morning, Vermilio gets ready to depart west, towards two large kingdoms, hoping to find a map that will lead her back to the Empire, as Helck waves at the Aurelians, who wish them a safe journey ahead. A passing traveler informs them that the two kingdoms were destroyed after a violent war. He points them toward another town in the distance where they can learn more about the war. In the small town, the group encounters a mysterious lady by a fountain singing about a hero named Angus, so they assume she is one of the survivors of the ruined kingdoms. They find a map seller with a map of the Empire, but he demands 50,000 len for it. Vermilio requests that the shopkeeper hold onto the map while they arrange the money. They sell off the crystals they received from the Aurelian princess, which only nets them 25,000 of the 50,000 len they need for the map. The two start thinking of ways to earn money quickly, when suddenly, they hear a person announce that there is a cooking competition with 30,000 len as the prize money. Vermilio realizes that Helck can win with his skills, so she signs them up for the contest. Another contestant named Ajikaba joins in, and we learn he is the undefeated champion of the cooking contest. There are also other formidable opponents, like Munmi the mild taste, and Tuga the spicy sauce, who join the contest, and we see that the head judge is Master Rio Raiden, who is well known in the cooking world. The competition starts, and the theme is one-pot dishes. The audience cheers at the dishes being created by the other contestants, while hardly noticing Helck and Vermilio. The audience continues to mock them until they see how skillfully Helck chops his vegetables, making it look like he's frozen in place. The other contestants are also intimidated by Helck's skill, and Vermilio tells them how he won the Demon Lord competition. The competition heats up as everyone starts seeing Helck as a serious competitor. Meanwhile, Pee-wee is listening to the mysterious lady singing by the fountain. We learn that Pee-wee went looking for popular foods to help Helck and got lost in the process. The lady offers to help Pee-wee find the others. At the competition, it is time to taste and judge the dishes. All the contestants are confident in their dishes, making Vermilio nervous. Rio starts tasting the dishes. He scores Tuga's and Munmi's dishes 70 points each, and Ajikaba's dish 98 points, but when he tastes Helck's dish, he scores it 120 points, making them the winners. Ajikaba is devastated and vows never to cook again, but Helck praises him, which inspires him to improve. He gives Helck his personal recipe book and departs on his cooking journey. Just as Vermilio thinks Pee-wee is missing, he appears behind her and learns that he is late, and the competition is already over. With the prize money, they buy the map, and learn they need to head northwest to reach the Empire, meaning they must pass through the ruined kingdoms on the way. The map seller warns them to avoid the abandoned kingdoms, but when they ask why, the lady from the fountain appears and informs them that a warrior of darkness prowls that area. We learn that the lady's name is Madame Iris, as she explains that crossing paths with the warrior of darkness means certain death. Despite the warnings, Vermilio decides to take the route anyway to avoid wasting more time. Before they leave, Madame Iris tells Pee-wee something, and then the group departs, soon arriving at the ruins of the kingdom. They walk through the ruins until Vermilio suddenly stops, frozen by a menacing aura. The sky darkens, and the warrior of darkness materializes. They try to run away from the warrior, but it catches up to them instantly. Just as it is about to attack, Helck swoops in and punches it away. Vermilio realizes that the warrior of darkness possesses the same aura as the Toffman king. However, her thoughts are abruptly interrupted by Helck, who urgently instructs her to take Pee-wee and escape while he confronts the warrior in battle. Vermilio says she will return to help once she has ensured Pee-wee's safety. Helck and the warrior start fighting, and Helck is injured immediately. Vermilio is shocked to see Helck struggle and realizes that the warrior draws power from a sinister source. She hurries to get Pee-wee to safety so that she can return to help Helck. Pee-wee then notices something, and we see that Helck manages to break the warrior's sword. When Vermilio thinks the battle is over, the warrior regenerates his sword with the shadows. After hiding Pee-wee away, Vermilio returns while charging a powerful spell, She launches it at the warrior, who remains unaffected. However, her attack leaves the warrior wide open, giving Helck an opportunity to land a strong punch on him. The warrior is thrown backwards by the force of the punch, but quickly recovers and teleports to Helck, slashing him across the chest. The fight continues as Helck and the warrior exchange blows. Vermilio notices Helck slowing down due to his injuries. Vermilio speculates that the warrior is enchanted with a spell similar to the one used by Azudra, and believes they cannot defeat it without finding the spellcaster. She attempts to flee from the warrior until they can figure out a plan to defeat it, but Helck emerges from behind them and attacks the warrior, and starts beating him. Vermilio notices something is off about Helck and remembers the Great Witch's warning. She yells at Helck to stop, but he ignores her. Pee-wee appears and starts chirping a song, which helps the darkness subside and causes the warrior to stop being hostile. Pee-wee explains that Madame Iris advised him to sing that song in case they ran into trouble. Back to his usual self, Helck walks over to them, and Vermilio checks to see if he's okay. When she tries to heal him, Helck stops her and uses his super recovery mode to heal himself. The warrior of darkness gets up and starts walking away. The group follows him all the way to the ruins of a castle, where several corpses lie. The warrior speaks, explaining that the kingdom only wanted peace, but seeing their loved ones getting murdered enraged them into waging war against the other kingdom. The conflict escalated, and forbidden magic was unleashed, transforming the knights into monstrous beings that slaughtered the kingdoms. In a desperate attempt to protect the survivors, the warrior of darkness was compelled to use the same magic to fight back. However, the people he sought to defend perished, and he descended into madness. The warrior expresses gratitude to the group for freeing him from the curse of darkness, but as he crumbles to dust, he notices Helck's weapon and advises him against possessing it. He then gives Helck his cursed sword to aid him in future battles. In his final moments, the warrior requests the group to sing the song again. However, just as Pee-wee starts singing, Iris stops him and expresses her desire to sing it. She reveals that she followed the group out of curiosity, and is happy to see that they saved the warrior from the curse. She walks over to the warrior and hugs him. We learn that his name is Angus, and he is her older brother. Angus is shocked to see her alive, and Iris explains that even though the Hex deprived him of awareness, he still managed to protect her and save many people for their kingdom. Helck leaves with his group so the siblings can be alone, as we hear Iris singing for Angus one last time. The group continues onward and reaches the ruins of the next town. Pee-wee suggests they race across the walls, but Vermilio protests, saying it's dangerous. However, Vermilio eventually joins in. Pee-wee reaches a gap in the wall, and Vermilio laughs at him, thinking he lost. However, Pee-wee flies into the air and gets ahead of them, but while he's too busy celebrating, he flies straight into a monster's mouth. Back in the Empire, we see the winged knights and demons engaged in a fierce battle, with the demons easily winning. Ista watches the battle unfold and recounts the situation. We learn that the humans launched another attack on Castle Urim, but were intercepted by the defense forces. Azudra managed to retake the Demon Lord's castle with his special assault team, reinforcing the castle's defenses to hold against another invasion. Since the winged knights can resurrect endlessly, they keep launching continuous attacks, but the demons manage to fend them off each time. Knowing that humans will soon reach their full potential as heroes, Ista is anxious, but she tries to have faith. Meanwhile, Han updates Azudra on the status of the battle, reporting that they have captured 5 knights. However, capturing more is difficult since they have countermeasures to avoid being captured alive, and Azudra admits that the plan to capture the knights is not paying off well. Ista then enters to report her findings on the humans' combat level. We learn that they have reached level 30, with their leader Edel reaching level 36. Han comments on the difficulty of raising combat level, and how the humans' hero status is helping them progress quickly. Azudra suggests reinforcing the army, or they might start taking casualties, but knows that they lack the numbers. Ista reports the results of the Demon King's combat level evaluation. We learn that Hyura is at level 52, and their other soldiers are around level 40, so Azudra is reassured that they will be able to hold out for longer. Azudra senses something, but he brushes it off and proceeds to perform his daily ritual to locate Vermilio. Rocco expresses concern that Azudra is exhausting himself by using magic every day. Azudra reassures her, insisting that he is perfectly fine. However, Han argues that he is lying and is actually quite weak. Rocco advises Azudra to take it easy for the sake of the troops' morale. Azudra assures her that he will perform the ritual less frequently if he fails this time, but Han once again accuses him of lying, and Azudra tells him to be quiet. We learn that Azudra has been performing the locator spell daily to keep track of Vermilio and ensure her safety. Azudra begins the ritual and is surprised to see when the doll lands within the map, confirming that Vermilio is getting closer. Azudra immediately requests a detailed map of the region to pinpoint Vermilio's exact location. Meanwhile, we see the winged knights arguing in their castle, while Asta watches them. Asta learns that the knights aren't focused on winning and have other goals in mind. The knights end the meeting, but one of them senses Asta in the shadows and rushes over to find her. Asta hides in time, and the knight thinks he must have just imagined it, but Asta figures that their hero abilities are growing sharper as they couldn't sense her before. Back at the castle, Han assembles a small search party on Azudra's orders to find Vermilio. Based on her movements, Azudra sees that Vermilio knows her way back to the Empire. Ista asks them if Helck is still with her because she is worried that he might turn out to be an enemy, but he reassures them not to worry. Han clarifies that Vermilio is either bringing Helck back as an ally or not at all. Azudra expresses trust in Vermilio's judgment, as she had the opportunity to observe Helck closely for a long time. Han believes that Azudra had trusted Helck from the beginning, but he clarifies that even he isn't fearless enough to blindly trust him. However, his initial instinct was to have faith in him. Azudra then discusses his desire to resolve matters peacefully, acknowledging that there are good and bad people among all, including humans. We witness him reminiscing about an old friend who appears to be human. In the desert, Vermilio and the rest of the group engage in a battle against monsters as they make their way to the Empire. We learn that Vermilio has been trying to stop Helck from fighting ever since he lost control in his last battle. Although she is convinced that Helck is not an adversary, his immense power unsettles her. Helck requests a conversation with Vermilio. After setting up a fire, we see Vermilio and Helck enjoying some hot chocolate when Helck shows her his short sword. We learn that the sword is broken and used to be a longsword called Hero Killer. Helck explains that while the sword has lost most of its magic, it still has enough power to kill a hero. He then asks Vermilio to take the sword and use it on him if he loses control again. Vermilio admits to Helck that she was initially suspicious of him but has changed her mind after observing him on their journey and refuses to take the weapon. Helck explains that it's a favor that he wishes her to consider once he tells her everything about his past, the power of heroes, and the human realm. We see Helck when he was 8 years old and very poor, pleading with a lady to pay him more for his work, but she refuses and shuts the door. On his way back, he sees his younger brother Kless getting bullied by older kids. Helck tells them to stop, but they are arrogant because of their nobility status. They threaten him, telling him he must not defy them. Helck agrees, but asks that they hit him instead of his brother, and they begin beating him up. We learn that Helck and Kless were orphaned at a young age when their village was ravaged by monsters that killed their parents. Helck took on the responsibility of caring for Kless, and the two headed to the royal capital to search for work, only to be abused by the nobles. After the bullies leave, Kless comes crying to Helck, who encourages him to be stronger. Kless expresses concern about Helck's injuries, but he reassures him by demonstrating his ability to heal instantly. In the present, Vermilio is shocked to hear this and speculates that he had awakened his hero abilities when he was just a child. Helck then continues his story, and we see Helck and his brother being regularly abused by the elites who would set fire to their home, throw away their food, or take their hard-earned money. Even then, it was impossible to leave because dangerous monsters were spawning outside the city walls. Despite their mistreatment, the two kept a positive outlook, hoping to leave the city when there were fewer monsters outside. Helck wished to travel with Kless and find a more peaceful place to live. One day, Kless falls dangerously ill due to malnutrition, and a man from the slums tells Helck that he won't make it through the night. Helck blames himself for not providing enough food and sets out to find a doctor for Kless, planning to pay for it with his savings. The man tells him to give up, saying no one would help him, but Helck is determined to save his brother. He carries Kless on his back and searches door to door for a doctor. No one in the city is willing to help them, but Helck doesn't give up and tries to keep his spirits up by talking about their dreams of traveling. Kless continues to get weaker, and Helck desperately begs the people around him to help, only to be harassed by them. As he is about to give up hope, a noble girl approaches him and asks what he wants, so he tells her his situation, and she runs off and calls for her father to help them. Her father takes them to his residence and gets a doctor to help Kless, who barely manages to survive. Helck is deeply grateful to the father, and after meeting these kind nobles, the brothers' lives change completely. 15 years later, we see humans desperately fending off monsters from infiltrating the city walls. The soldiers are too weak to fight them and are about to be defeated when Kless arrives and kills one with a single swipe. We learn that Kless is now the captain of the 3rd Infantry Regiment and is 18 years old. He leads the soldiers to charge at the monsters. The soldiers return to the town, and we see 22-year-old Helck watching them from above. We learn that the man who saved them was a member of the Rapid family, who had supported the royal family since its founding. The girl who helped Helck was named Shalami, the eldest daughter of the family. She visited the two after Kless recovered and became their friend. We see the other nobles stop harassing the brothers once they see Helck and Kless being close with Shalami and her family. However, Kless is not satisfied knowing that other people still suffer in the slums. He thinks that the people are too worried about monsters to care about fighting the injustice of the class system in the capital. Kless decides to join the army when he grows up to bring peace to the capital by defeating the monsters. We see Kless training hard and learn that he joined the army at 16 and got promoted to the rank of captain at 18. Mr. Rapid comes to greet Helck, and they discuss Kless and his achievements. Rapid suggests that Kless may become the savior of the kingdom. As Rapid is about to leave, he turns to Helck and tells him that he is strong enough to fight alongside Kless, which could increase their chances against the monsters. But Helck says he's just an amateur and is better suited for labor work. While waiting for Kless to return, Helck notices him with Shalami and wonders if they might be in love. The two notice him, and they head to a pub to enjoy some drinks together. Kless tells Helck that he might be headed for another expedition outside the capital and might not see him for some time. Helck wishes him a safe journey and promises to cook him a nice meal upon his return. After Kless leaves for his expedition, more monsters start spawning near the capital, so the kingdom enacts a military draft. Helck is sent on an expedition where his group encounters a dangerous monster, which Vermilio determines to be a New World life form. Helck tells her how terrified he was of that monster but stayed to fight it as his comrades needed him. Helck focuses on bearing the monster's attacks instead of fighting back and realizes he can withstand its attacks. He changes his tactics and counterattacks the monster, exchanging blows until finally defeating it. After the battle, the squadron informs Edel that they can't help him anymore since their commanding officer and captain are dead. We learn that Helck's squadron was assigned the task of saving Edel's town from monsters, as Edel himself had requested assistance from the capital. The squadron leaves, but Helck decides to stay behind and accompany Edel back to his town. Upon reaching the town, Edel is devastated to see it has been completely overrun by monsters. Helck tells him that it may not have been too long since the town was overrun, and there might still be survivors they can rescue. With this in mind, they proceed to offer their assistance. In the town, they search for survivors and come across a woman skillfully fighting off the monsters. They decide to join her in defending against the monsters. The woman is surprised to witness Helck effortlessly defeating the monsters with his bare hands, but Helck tells her that her swordsmanship is just as impressive. The woman explains that her sword is enchanted with magic specifically effective against monsters, which is how she fended off the monsters. She then asks Helck to share his secret, but he humbly tells her that he used to work as a construction worker, but she assumes that Helck is just playing dumb. Meanwhile, survivors approach Edel and inform him that the townspeople have been evacuated to the nearby castle grounds with the assistance of a group of mercenaries. We find out that several mercenary groups had formed, specializing in fighting monsters for money. We learn that the woman's name is Alicia, and she is the leader of the mercenary group that passed by when they noticed the town was in trouble. Edel asks Alicia to stay back and help his town, and she tells him that she will only be able to do so if Helck joins her group, to which he agrees. Helck then spends his days fighting as a mercenary alongside Alicia, Edel, and their other companions, enjoying their time together. One day, Alicia and Helck are discussing their progress in eradicating monster nests when Alicia mentions how incredible Helck's abilities are. Alicia tells Helck that she comes from a family of mercenaries and that her grandfather was a hero who fought demons. She tells him that seeing his strength made her realize her own limits, but she still thinks he is amazing and can save more people than she ever could. She asks him to stay in her group after they are done saving the town. Helck continues to fight alongside Alicia for 4 years, but despite their efforts, the number of monsters doesn't seem to decrease. Meanwhile, in the kingdom, they discovered the Demon Lord's castle during an expedition and announce a mission to kill the Demon Lord, suspecting the demons to be behind the rise of monsters. But Vermilio knows that demons are not responsible for all the monsters. The human king assigns the task to Kless, who sets off to defeat the Demon Lord. As Helck and the mercenaries discuss Kless, we learn that he is accompanied by the heavy infantry commander Zeruzian, the great sage Mikaros, and 5,000 soldiers. Alicia yells at the others to be more sympathetic to Helck, but Helck is confident that Kless will win. Kless defeats the Demon Lord 3 weeks later, stabbing him in his head. While the city celebrates his victory, Helck rushes to see Kless and learns he was critically injured and poisoned during the battle. Mikaros, the man who cured Kless when he fell sick as a kid, comes to see him, and we learn that he is the great sage who fought alongside Kless in the recent campaign. He apologizes for being unable to help Kless during the battle but promises to save him. Back in Edel's town, Alicia notes how the number of monsters remains the same despite defeating the Demon Lord. Everyone brushes off her concerns, but they turn out to be true when word reaches the kingdom that a horde of monsters is headed their way. The threat of the imminent attack leaves the citizens in chaos, who demand that Kless come out to fight the horde. Alicia tells Helck to ignore them and help fight the monsters, but Helck suspects that the Demon Lord may have resurrected and sent the monsters, so he decides to take matters into his own hands and kill the Demon Lord himself. We see Helck walking alone towards the Demon Lord's castle. He walks through the destroyed remains and discovers strange mannequins resembling soldiers from the kingdom. At that moment, he senses a strong presence and follows it, only to come face to face with Azudra, who is wandering around the castle. Azudra is surprised to see him and tries to stop him from proceeding, but Helck is determined to defeat him, believing he is the Demon Lord, but he falls right into Azudra's trap. However, Helck manages to escape the trap unharmed, and Azudra fights back using his powers. Helck relentlessly attacks him until he realizes that he is not the Demon Lord. Azudra tells him that the demons are not responsible for spawning the monsters and discovers that Helck is not the hero who defeated the Demon Lord. Azudra explains that the Demon Lord's castle is just a small part of the Demon Empire, and that he is one of the 4 generals who help rule it. He assures him that the demons have no intentions of waging war against the humans, and tells him that the uptick in monster activity is due to the fallout of the siege on the Demon Lord's castle. Helck is shocked to learn that the castle was actually preventing monsters from spawning. He asks Azudra why he's at the castle, and Azudra takes him to the burial site he made for the demons who died from the attack by the humans. Helck asks him if he despises the humans for killing them, and Azudra says he does, but the demons were already aware of the risk when taking up the post. He explains that the demons hope to reforge their friendship with humans like they once had. The two discuss the relationship between humans and demons, and Helck's perception of demons changes completely. He wonders why Kless would still fight the Demon Lord after learning the truth. Helck asks Azudra whether peace between the 2 kingdoms can be established, and Azudra says it's possible, telling him about the competition for the next Demon Lord. When he returns to the human world, he sees the aftermath of a battle between the monsters and humans and rushes to the kingdom to find his friends. He is relieved to see them safe and sound and learns that the nobles have shut the city's gates, forcing the soldiers and mercenaries to face the monsters, resulting in the death of all the others. We witness Alicia screaming at a noble for closing the gates, and the noble tells her that their lives matter more. Alicia becomes enraged, and Edel has to hold her back. The mercenaries ask Helck to check on Alicia and Edel, who are at the castle, demanding that the commander be held accountable for their actions. On his way to the castle, Helck notices the citizens gathered around some demons who were captured during the siege and throwing rocks at them. Helck becomes infuriated, and after some hesitation, he steps forward in front of the crowd, telling them to stop, but is only met with more aggression as they throw rocks at him. One of the demons tied behind him tells him to inform Azudra about the power of the new world that is hidden among the humans. He is abruptly interrupted by Mr. Rapid, who warns Helck not to be fooled by the demons. But at that moment, the demons suddenly transform into monsters and attack the crowd, but we see 3 human soldiers emerge and swiftly defeat the monsters. Helck is astonished by their formidable strength, and Rapid explains that they were blessed with the power of heroes, urging Helck to have faith in him. Later, Rapid announces what they learned about the demon realm and explains his plan to defeat the demons by using the power of hero awakening. The artificially awakened heroes help fend off forthcoming demon attacks, and the kingdom, now safer, begins to prosper. Helck is still unconvinced that the demons are evil but doesn't tell anyone about his conversation with Azudra. While hanging out with his friends, the mercenaries offer him and Alicia coupons to go on a date to a new restaurant, but Helck doesn't understand it's a date and just thinks it's a chance to tell Alicia about his doubts. Alicia goes to get ready for the date, and Edel comes in to cheer Helck on, who is still completely oblivious. Suddenly, one of Klessa's companions from the expedition comes in and urgently asks Helck for help. Zeruzian warns Helck that the kingdom will turn into a horrific place because of the power of the awakening, and they must do something about it. He reveals that the awakened warriors are felons who were used as guinea pigs to test the awakening spell, and it makes them slaves to the spellcaster. Zeruzian further explains how the nobility plans to use the spell on all the citizens that aren't nobility to make the kingdom a new world that exists only for the nobles, and that he has to unwillingly play a part in it. Helck asks if Mika Rose and Rapid have a hand in it, and Zeruzian reveals that it was Mika Rose who devised the plan, with all the elite unanimously agreeing to it. He tells Helck not to trust them, as he has observed a strange aura coming from them for a very long time. Edel asks how they can hope to fight against the awakened warriors, and Zeruzian explains that they only need to take out the 2 key players of the spell. He reveals that the main spellcaster is the king, and to activate the spell, he uses someone with a special ability, which we learn is Kless. Zeruzian explains that the kingdom is taking advantage of Kless being unconscious to put the plan in motion. If they manage to save Kless, they can put a stop to their plan. He talks about Helck's extraordinary abilities, and how Kless told him to go to Helck if anything went wrong. We see Alicia was listening in, and she also agrees to go. Helck tries to dissuade them from joining, but Alicia refuses, saying that he always tries to shoulder these burdens alone, so they all sit down to discuss the details of the plan. At night, a riot breaks out outside the castle, and Zeruzian sends guards to take care of it as part of the plan. With fewer guards around, the group is able to infiltrate the castle easily. Deeper in the castle, they encounter the awakened warriors, whom they work together to defeat. The group continues onward, and Alicia remarks on how they will have to deal with monsters and demons after they succeed with the plan. Hearing this, Helck stops and tells the group what he learned from the demons. The group is unconvinced and tells Helck that he might have been tricked, except for Alicia, who is open to the idea of resolving things peacefully. They continue making their way to Kless and finally reach the room where he's being held. They find Kless seated on a throne at the center of the room, and Mika Rose walks in to confront them. Zeruzian tries to reason with him, but is met with opposition from the senators, who are seated behind. They talk about how the plan is beneficial, as it will make the commoners more efficient workers who are strong enough to fight the monsters while being unable to defy the nobility. Hearing this, the group gets ready to fight, only to stop immediately when they see the king seated among the senators. The king commands them to kneel, and they find themselves unable to disobey his words. He labels them as criminals for opposing the kingdom's decision and commands them to take their own lives. We see that Helck is completely unaffected by his words, and openly defies his orders, which breaks the others out of the spell. The senators are shocked to see his power, and speculate that he was able to break the spell, because the others regard him as higher than the king. The king commands Kless to fight Helck and kill the traitors, but the group notices a strange aura around Kless as the 2 start to fight. Helck tries calling him out, but Mika Rose explains that Kless is completely under the king's control. We learn that Mika Rose had spent a long time searching for a person he could use for this plan, and he discovered the power he needed in Kless when he treated him the first time. Since then, he pushed Kless to fight monsters so he could reach the power level needed to put the plan into action. Zeruzian realizes he miscalculated and asks Helck to retreat, but Helck continues trying to bring Kless back to his senses. Alicia realizes that Helck won't attack him, so she jumps in and slashes Kless with her sword, which actually hurts him, and we learn that it's the Hero Slayer sword. Kless stops fighting, and the group tries to escape, but the senators send more awakened soldiers after them. The group stays back to fight them while allowing Helck to escape, but Mika Rose emerges behind Alicia and attacks her, taking the sword and using it to stab Helck. He manages to avoid having his vitals stabbed, but the pain of the wound is intense enough to leave him close to passing out. Mika Rose is impressed by Helck's reflexes and marvels at the power of the Hero Slayer, while Zeruzian and the others realize at that moment that the blade is effective against Helck since he's a hero. Zeruzian also mentions that something about Mika Rose is off because of how he melted into the shadows, and points out that he has the same dark aura that Kless had moments ago. The council is also shocked to see Mika Rose wielding that dark power. Mika Rose tries persuading Helck to become the kingdom's ally, as his extraordinary abilities will be useful in putting his plan into action. Helck refuses his offer since he doesn't agree with turning innocent people into mindless slaves, and he manages to get back on his feet before trying to punch Mika Rose, who disappears into the shadows. Mika Rose appears behind him, amused by his strength to stand up despite his injury, and says that Helck would always oppose him, so he tries to kill him with the sword, ensuring he won't ever stand in his way. The others watch desperately as Mika Rose raises his sword, but before he can land the killing blow, Kless appears behind him after waking up from his mind control. Mika Rose quickly teleports away from him, but Kless catches up and manages to cut off his hands, as well as breaking the sword in half. Mika Rose is shocked to see Kless back to his senses, but he says that he's too late, before collapsing to the ground. Just when the others think Kless is back to normal, the king attempts to use his powers and regain control over him, but before the king can finish his order, Kless throws his sword at him, piercing him through his head. However, the king remains unaffected and orders Kless to kill Helck. The command creates a dark aura around Kless, and he's helpless against it as he picks up the broken blade. He walks up to Helck with the sword, as everyone urges him to stop, but when he reaches Helck, he apologizes to him for causing all the trouble and stabs himself with the blade instead. Helck is left in shock and reflects on Kless's life, wondering why he had to die after he fought so hard for peace, as he grieves over his death. The council members are annoyed by Kless's actions and start calling him useless and a stupid lowborn who they will have to replace. Their comments infuriate Helck, and in his rage, he starts emitting the same dark aura that Kless had. His aura terrifies the council, who orders the awakened soldiers to stop him, only to find that the awakened soldiers are also overpowered by the aura. He calls out the council for using Kless for their own schemes and the hypocrisy of it all, as he vows to slaughter them all, but before Helck can kill the council, Alicia embraces him and apologizes to him, because it was her sword that was used against him and his brother. This breaks Helck out of the dark trance, and Alicia lays him down, telling him that she will protect him. The council takes this as a chance to order the awakened soldiers to kill Helck. He loses consciousness from exhaustion, but the others fight to protect him. We see Helck dreaming about him and Kless when they were younger, but it soon turns into a nightmare, reminding him of how he failed to protect Kless. Helck awakens alone in a cave, remembering the events that occurred, and realizing that it was all real. When he leaves the cave, he stumbles upon several bounty hunters who tell him that they've heard the story about him and his friends, who fought to the bitter end to allow him to escape. Although the hunter is joking, Helck realizes that his friends risked their lives for him, which causes him to have a breakdown over his inability to protect them. While he is grieving, the bounty hunter tries to kill him, saying that his friends will join him soon enough. But this gives him hope, as he asks the men if his friends are still alive. The man tells him that they are in a prison and are awaiting public execution. Realizing that he has a chance to save his friends, he rushes to the kingdom. We see Helck being attacked by a horde of bounty hunters who wish to claim the prize for capturing him. He easily fights them all off, while focusing on trying to get to his friends, remembering how they saved him while he was powerless and got captured because of him. Helck doesn't get a chance to rest, as the kingdom sends an army of awakened soldiers after him, who are led by a masked individual, who we learn used to be a dangerous hitman. The fight causes his wounds to open up, but he keeps thinking about his friends, determined to get back to them. He faces the soldiers head-on, vowing not to give up as the soldiers attack him, and he fights them off. The hitman stabs his wound, but he remains unaffected, as he remembers Alicia, who patched up his wounds and implored him to survive while he was unconscious. Helck vows not to give up as he defeats all the soldiers in an instant, but the hitman kills himself so he can respawn as a stronger soldier, and Helck continues onward to the kingdom. Meanwhile in the kingdom, we see the citizens belittling Alicia, calling for her death for being a traitor and committing treason. The noble who closed the gates also torments her, telling her he'll let her live if she begs for mercy and swears to be his slave, getting back at her for insulting him. He laughs as she doesn't say anything, and he announces the start of her execution. He belittles her for being mocked by the people she saved, as the crowd grows more aggressive towards her. Alicia tries to stop them, but is too weak to say anything as the man urges the executioner to kill her. They prepare her for the beheading, but the executioner stops after sensing a dark presence in the air, telling the man that something bad will happen if they execute her. We see him go insane from the fear, and the noble trembles as he senses the aura. Helck arrives at the scene, and the crowd runs away from him. Helck walks up to the man and asks him if he hurt his friend. He tries to deny it, but this doesn't stop Helck from tossing him away. He frees Alicia, and the two share a moment as he comforts her, telling her they should go to the demon realm, because he believes Azudra is right about demons being a kind-hearted species who will be more welcoming than the humans. Helck promises to protect her from now on, and she agrees to stay by his side no matter where he goes. It suddenly starts to snow as Raphat arrives, asking Helck if he plans to save all of his friends even though they are guarded by a large number of awakened soldiers, but Helck tells him he will fight anyone who stands in his way. Raphat acknowledges his strength for breaking out of his despair and succeeding in saving his friends who were destined to die. He tells him he was foolish to return, and that his actions will lead him further into despair, because the awakening process has already begun. Suddenly, Alicia and the other townsfolk start screaming in pain as they start transforming into awakened soldiers. Raphat reveals that despite their efforts, Helck and his friends failed to stop the plan. He explains that everyone has the power of a hero in them, but only rare cases like Klus and Helck can tap into that power naturally. If the powers are awakened forcefully, the person loses all sense of self, becoming a mindless soldier. Alicia starts screaming in pain, and Helck wonders how she's affected by the awakening. He realizes it's caused by the snow, and Raphat reveals the snow is a part of the spell that accelerates the awakening process. He tries to shield Alicia from the snow, but Raphat tells him that it's meaningless as he continues to watch Alicia suffer. Raphat tells him that everyone from commoners to nobles will awaken and be reborn as living soldiers for the king to control. He tells Helck to get away from the kingdom, or he will have to fight the empty husks of his friends, but Helck refuses to accept this and runs off with Alicia. Alicia tells him to leave her behind before he has to see what happens to her. He tries to comfort her, but is helpless as the spell continues to take control of her. She asks him to kill her with the Hero Slayer before she becomes a monster, but Helck refuses, saying he will stop the awakening, and asks her not to give up. Alicia considers what he said, and she asks Helck to smile for her one last time, so he smiles for her as she awakens in his arms. We see Vermilio realizing that Helck was faking his smile for Alicia's sake the whole time, and he tells her that it was selfish not to kill Alicia, but he didn't want to lose her because she was his friend. After Alicia awakens, Helck leaves her behind and escapes the kingdom. While he escapes, Raphat watches him, calling him a fool for not killing Alicia. Helck ignores him and remains determined to find a way to reverse her awakening and a way to put an end to the snow in the town. At that moment, Zeruzian flies over to Helck and is shocked to see him retain his sanity and human form. Zeruzian explains that he kept his form due to his high compatibility with the awakening process. He tells Helck he accepted the awakening and is drunk on power, making it clear he has lost his mind as well. Vermilio asks Helck why he didn't just try to defeat the king, suggesting it could have halted the awakening process. But Helck explains that he tried to take the king down, but was aware that simply killing him wouldn't resolve anything, saying that the king's death would cause the humans to go out of control and turn into monsters for the rest of their lives. We see Helck confronting Mikaros and is shocked to see he's still alive. He fights Mikaros, blaming him for everything that's happened. Mikaros continues to taunt him and reveals that he managed to keep Kless alive, but just enough to continue using his body for the spell. Helck becomes enraged hearing this and unleashes his power against him, but Mikaros realizes that fighting Helck is too dangerous for him, so he opens a portal to transport Helck far away, and Vermilio realizes this was how Helck ended up in the demon realm, as Helck bashes himself for his failures, but remains determined to save his people. She tells Helck he should let the demons fight the humans, since that's what they are after, but Helck interrupts her. He continues telling her how he got lost when he arrived here, but was saved by Kenros, who took him in. Kenros and his people welcomed him with open arms, despite being human and the brother of the one who slayed the demon lord, and Vermilio realizes that his goals also include protecting the demons and the friends he made along the way. Helck tells her that killing the soldiers is useless since they can reincarnate. He tells her he's the only one who can stop them, since he has a terrifying power that also causes him to lose control when he feels enraged. He worries that he may harm Vermilio and his friends, which is why he wants her to hold onto the Hero Slayer sword. He tells her he'd rather Azudra have it, since he's one of the demon generals with the strength to defeat him, but gave up thinking he wouldn't be able to encounter him that easily. He once again requests Vermilio to take the sword, and she reveals her true identity as also being one of the 4 demon generals, accepting his request and promising not to betray his expectations. But she asks him to fight with the desire to live, and reminds him that he's not in this alone. She tells him he can stay in their empire once everything is over, and that everyone will welcome him. Helck is moved by her words, and thanks her as she takes the sword. Later, the group hitches a ride at the train station and continues their travels through the empire. They get off the train and continue onwards, fighting a dangerous monster along the way. They meet the upcoming town's chief, who warns them about a monster, but Vermilio tells him that they've killed it already, so the town celebrates its defeat. At the party, a scout named Harpy finds them and updates them on Azudra's progress. She then hands Vermilio a note from Azudra, where he asks her to head for the human realm's southern region instead of the empire. Meanwhile, Azudra informs the others that they will serve as a diversion to let Helck and Vermilio defeat the human king. We see Azudra's demon forces fighting off against the awakened human army. Zeruzian and other high-ranked soldiers watch the battle unfold before joining the fight. Kenros fights with Edel, and while dodging his attacks, he tells him they should be friends instead, since Helck would be upset if they fought one another. Edel tells him to keep Helck's name out of his mouth, saying he despises demons, particularly jokers like Kenros. Hearing this, Hyura jumps into the fight and throws Edel's comments back at him, saying she shares a similar hatred towards humans like him, talking about how selfish humans are for playing the victim. She says that she hates weaklings like him above everything else, before cutting off his wings. Edel is enraged, saying he'll tear her apart, but Hyura is unfazed and tries to capture him rather than let him commit suicide. But before she can do anything, he is shot by another soldier. Meanwhile, Azudra discusses the diversion plan at the castle. He explains that this is only plan A, but it's their best option against enemies who keep reviving. Han expresses his doubts over sending only 2 people to execute this plan, but Azudra assures him that Vermilio and Helck are far from ordinary soldiers. Han is still unconvinced and asks what will happen if the search party doesn't retrieve Vermilio and Helck in time. So Azudra tells Han that he's put together a list of warriors who can act as replacements. He continues by saying that since they won't get a second chance if they fail to assassinate the human king, he hopes that Vermilio and Helck accomplish the mission, because they are the strongest. To boost the plan's success rate, he also plans to let the humans believe that the demons think they can't afford to strike back, hoping they'll let their guard down. However, Azudra informs Han and Istad that he senses a dangerous human who can pose a threat to them. He suspects this human has the same power level as Helck, since no ordinary human should have been able to defeat the demon general, despite awakening their hero powers. He also thinks it's strange that the humans are constantly throwing themselves into battle without a strategy, so he says they should wait for Asta to report. Asta continues exploring the city and the castle, noting how it was easy to infiltrate due to the numerous escape routes and lax security. While walking through an alley, she hears some knights and hides, overhearing Edel having a discussion with his subordinates about infiltrating the demon castle. One of the knights brings up how Edel is obsessed with defeating Hyura while they're getting ready to move on to the final phase. Before he can say anything, another knight senses an intruder and warns them not to speak aloud, noting how the demons seem to be aware of their plans before. One of the soldiers decides to blast magic into every hole available to draw out any intruders, which causes Asta to fall into the chamber where Klessa's body is. She is puzzled by the sight, but hides in the blobs when she notices winged soldiers flying around the chamber. Asta finds a hole in the floor and dives into it to escape, falling deeper into the castle as she tries contacting Ista, but realizes she's run out of coffee. She tries to find her way out, but discovers a secret passage leading to a library, and picks up a book there that contains information about the spell. She leaves the room, only to have it shut behind her, leaving her exposed in the hallway. Asta sneaks her way through the winged knights, trying to find a hiding place, and ends up in another empty room. There, she runs into Shalami, who doesn't seem suspicious of her, which Asta finds strange. Asta tells her she's a traveling merchant who got scared of the winged knights, and she tries to leave the room, but Shalami stops her, saying she's lonely after being trapped here for a long time and would like to chat. Suddenly, Asta senses knights coming in to give Shalami her daily meal. She tells Asta to hide under the bed in case the knights find her suspicious. After they leave, Asta is surprised by Shalami's clueless behavior and deduces that she must have been imprisoned in the room for a while, realizing that she's not a bad person. The two then introduce themselves, and Shalami offers her some snacks, so Asta takes some coffee from her, allowing her to communicate with her sister. Ista is shocked and angry at Asta for being so reckless, but Asta assures her that there is nothing to worry about. She tells Ista about Shalami, who finds it weird that she's unawakened and thinks she must be special. Asta mentions that she seems to love talking, so they think they can get information from her. We see the awakened knights attacking one of the demon castles, using bombs to break its barrier. They manage to make a hole in the barrier and prepare to send their knights to attack, but they are suddenly shot by arrows, and we see that the demons were prepared. The lord of the castle, Shin, tells them that his men are some of the strongest, so they have no chance of winning against them. Zeruzian admits that they aren't strong enough to fight them, but says that there are other ways to win, as there's suddenly an explosion, and Shin receives a report about 30,000 New World monsters heading towards the castle. Shin wonders what's going on, and the knights reveal that they've obtained a spell that allows them to spawn monster nests, which are attracted to the energy of the castle's barrier crystals. In a flashback, we see a weak Zeruzian as he looks for Kless, wanting to help him fight the demon lord. He comes to the end of the tunnel and finds Mika Rose, who is impressed by his strength despite not being awakened. Zeruzian is confused by his words, but doesn't think much of it and asks about Kless. Mika Rose tells him that Kless is already at the Demon Lord's castle, so Zeruzian says they should back him up. But Mika Rose says that the Demon Lord is too strong for them, saying he needs to make preparations if they want to defeat him. He uses a spell that unleashes a dark aura, and explains that it's a forbidden curse he discovered long ago. Zeruzian is shocked at the sight, and Mika Rose summons an abomination. Back in the present, Zeruzian and the knights watch as the monsters fight against Shin's forces. They prepare to go after the barrier crystal, but the knights suddenly get shot by a volley of arrows. They realize an enemy is approaching from behind, and see that Azudra has arrived with reinforcements. Shin tells them they were too naive, and that their forces will be crushed, but Zeruzian claims that this is what they wanted, telling Azudra that it was a mistake for him to come here. Meanwhile, at the Demon Lord's castle, we see that it's under attack, and Mika Rose notes that the defenses are too weak without Azudra. He comes across a number of the captains, but he easily overpowers them and makes his way to the barrier crystal. Hyura sneaks up on him and she surprises him with her speed, but he disappears and shocks her from behind. He thinks he has won, but his hand is suddenly cut off. He decides to fight seriously, blasting her with his magic, and he regenerates his hand, surprising Hyura, and he cuts off her arm. She is brought to her limits, and Mikaros notes that her regeneration depletes her energy, so he can kill her if he keeps attacking. But Edel suddenly appears, determined to fight with Hyura, and he tells Mikaros to go on ahead. Mikaros gets to the crystal, but the doors suddenly close, and tree roots emerge from the ground. They completely surround him, forming a barrier, and Azudra reveals he was waiting for him, as we see that the Azudra at the other castle was a fake. Azudra confronts Mikaros about being the one who actually killed the Demon Lord, and he admits to this, saying that even in his dying moments, the Demon Lord wanted peace. Azudra attacks with his roots, and he manages to catch Mikaros' leg. He throws a spear at him, but Mikaros teleports behind him and attacks with his magic. However, it has no effect, and Azudra throws his magic back at him, causing him to be weakened. He says he will come back to life like the soldiers, but Azudra sees through his lies, saying that if that were the case, he would have shown himself earlier. Mikaros notes that Azudra is different than he once was, revealing that humans used to be stronger in the past, and they would constantly fight against the demons. Azudra would fight on the front lines, and he would be feared by everyone whom he faced. Azudra wonders who he is, and we learn that Mikaros was once an ordinary soldier, who managed to survive a massacre and learned to adapt to the demon land's poison, which eventually awakened his powers and granted him immortality. Azudra wonders if he's after revenge, but Mikaros reveals that he just wants to create a new world by ending the current one, and that he spent the last 1500 years learning and creating spells to become powerful enough to achieve this goal. He goes on to explain that he knew Azudra was waiting for him in the room, but he still walked into his trap because he wanted to rid himself of his fear. Mikaros starts attacking, and Azudra realizes that he's too dangerous to be kept alive. Meanwhile, we see Hyura and Edel fighting, but she gets annoyed at him for going easy on her because of her injuries. She tells him to fight the others instead, but he says he can't, because their relaxed attitudes remind him of his old comrades. They continue to fight, and Edel notes how he has gotten stronger, but Hyura says she'll still beat him every time. However, Edel doesn't mind losing to her over and over, saying he wants to fight her forever. But Hyura calls a timeout, wondering why he seems happy about that. Edel gets flustered and tries to explain himself, saying he just got excited about beating her. He starts reminding himself of the king's orders and his goal to wipe out the demons, but Hyura realizes that he's starting to shake off the king's spell, and that's what's making him unstable. Back in the human world, Asta asks Shalami about the human king, so Shalami reveals that she is the king. Asta is terrified hearing this, but it turns out to be a joke. Shalami offers to tell her where the king is, but asks to go with her, because she wants to get out and see Helck again. Asta thinks about how Shalami must be important since she's the only normal human left, so she promises to take her to Helck, and Shalami gets excited hearing this. They talk as they go through the castle, and Shalami reveals she has the special ability to create snow, which can spread the powers of others over a large area. Asta realizes that her ability would be terrifying in the war, so she thinks about killing her, but ends up deciding to help her escape. Shalami suddenly realizes that she somehow doesn't remember the way anymore, and Asta hears footsteps approaching. They run away, and find themselves in the king's chamber, but the king spots them, and Shalami starts attacking Asta in a trance, cutting away her hat. Rafid enters, and stops the king from putting a spell on his daughter, since it isn't part of the plan, and Shalami falls unconscious in Asta's arms. Rafid recognizes Asta as the presence he sensed earlier, and is impressed that she managed to get to his daughter without being detected. Asta quickly grabs the knife to assassinate the king, but Rafid blocks her attack, and two awakened warriors pin her down. He tells her that killing the king would only cause the warriors to stop being docile and become monsters as strong as the New World creatures. Asta refuses to listen, but he continues, saying that even if they stopped their advance by killing the king, it would cause nothing but death and destruction, so the demons can't do anything against them. We cut back to Azudra fighting Mikaros, where he manages to land an attack, but Mikaros tells him it was a mistake to capture the winged soldiers alive to prevent their resurrection, as he breaks their curse, causing them to transform into monsters. Azudra remains confident, but there is suddenly a crash outside, and Mikaros reveals he released the curse on all 2,000 soldiers attacking the castle. Azudra calls for Han, and he orders him to evacuate everyone. He then calls upon the power of his guardian tree, and he restrains all of the monsters at once. Hyura wonders what's going on, and a monster appears behind her. It tries to blast her, but Edel saves her just in time. She tells him she doesn't need his help, but he says that he doesn't want her to die. Mika Rose spots them, and he realizes that Edel has built up the willpower to resist the spell. Hyura wonders why Edel isn't transforming, and they theorize that his affinity for awakening prevented him from transforming. Hyura is determined to protect Azudra, and she asks Edel to give her another ride. He agrees while noting that she looks different than before, and feels that Helck might have been right about making peace with the demons. Hyura is embarrassed and tells him to stop stalling, but just as they are about to fly back, Mika Rose interferes, saying that he hoped for the self-aware warriors to be more valuable assets, but seeing Edel break free confirms his decision to remove their sense of self. Edel charges at him, stabbing him in the chest, but he grabs Edel's head and uses Mind Break to destroy his mental fortitude, so that he will transform. Hyura tries to stop him, but he grabs her and prepares to kill her. Edel returns to save her, and Mika Rose is shocked that he resisted his spell. Hyura cuts him up into pieces, but we see that he's still alive. Edel starts to transform, and tells her to run away, hoping that Helck will end the war soon, but she tells him to worry about himself and try to regain his senses. He apologizes for the mean things he said to her, but he completes his transformation and flies off toward Azudra. Mika Rose watches on as Azudra gets overpowered by Edel. Azudra is brought to his knees, and Edel prepares to finish him off, but he's still determined not to lose. Mika Rose knows Azudra is putting his faith in Helck, but he's confident that he has a way to deal with him. We cut back to Helck and the others, where Vermilio suggests taking a detour since the bridge that goes ahead is blocked. Pee-wee starts singing, which cheers her up, and Harpy feels useless, so she offers to do other chores, but Helck assures her, telling her to rest so she can scout for them later. Helck reminisces about their journey, saying that despite traveling a long way, it hasn't felt that way, and Vermilio agrees that every day has been something new for her. Helck knows that their next step will be to kill the humans, which he's ready for, but she tells him not to shoulder the burden alone. She explains that her power is best against a large number of enemies, so she tells him to let her handle the soldiers, while he should focus on defeating Mika Rose and the king. She tells him that the battle will be painful, but tells him to stay strong. She believes that they can do it, and Helck tells her she can count on him. We see the demons setting up a base camp near the human realm, but it's suddenly attacked by countless winged soldiers. As Helck's party approaches the camp, an injured scout finds them and tells them about the ambush, telling Vermilio to run, as we see Rapid relentlessly attacking the base. The scout notes that there was a whole army, and Vermilio realizes that they are after Helck since they fear his strength, wanting to make him go berserk. She speculates that they have a way of triggering his berserk mode, and she starts feeling uneasy, but Helck steps up and encourages her to keep moving. Vermilio notes that things are getting dangerous, so she tells Pee-wee and Harpy to stay behind. We see a flashback of when Helck saw Mika Rose at the Urim Castle, before he was teleported away by the gate. Mika Rose goes back to the kingdom, and tells Rapid that Helck is a huge obstacle in their plan due to his immense power, so the gate going out of control was good for them. He notes that if Helck isn't dealt with properly, he'll become a bigger problem than Azudra. Mika Rose uses his magic to track Helck, and sees that Helck is on his way, so he asks Rapid to deal with him, telling him to take a certain soldier with him. We cut back to Rapid, as his men chase after a demon spy, but Helck and Vermilio arrive just in time to save him, and he tells them that there are others from the camp that are still alive. They confront Rapid, who comments that Helck is in better shape than he expected, and Helck says it's because he was saved by the demons. Rapid recognizes his strength, and offers him a deal where he'll let him live in peace if he walks away, or else he'll drive him to despair and make him go berserk. Helck refuses his offer and Rapid calls him a fool, telling him he won't be able to overcome fighting his old comrades. Rapid sends his knights to attack, but Vermilio steps in, telling Helck he's not alone. The two fight together, and they start taking out the knights. Rapid goes after Vermilio, seeing her as Helck's weak point, and there's a huge explosion, but Vermilio emerges unharmed, telling Helck not to worry about her, saying that she'll deal with Rapid. She summons 2 flame soldiers to fight for her, and she tells Rapid he's underestimating the strength of Helck's will, saying that he will never become a monster, but Rapid thinks that he's only holding on because of her, so all he needs to do is take her out. Vermilio puts her trust in Helck's resolve, even if she is defeated, but she still has a bad feeling. There is suddenly an arrow that flies past her, and it's aimed at Helck. He manages to catch it, but is shocked when he sees the knight who fired it. Vermilio realizes that the knight is one of Helck's former comrades, and Rapid commands all his troops to target Vermilio. Helck tries to help her, but the knight shoots another arrow at him, forcing him to stop. Vermilio assures him that she'll be okay, and tells him to handle the knight. While she fights the others off with her flames, Rapid lunges at her, telling her that she doesn't know a thing about Helck. He tells her that Helck isn't fond of fighting, and only uses his powers for the sake of others, saying that he puts on a facade while suffering on the inside. She suddenly senses something odd, as Helck starts releasing a dark aura while fighting the knight. The knight pulls out a broken sword to fight him, but he is able to stop the attack. The darkness intensifies, and the other winged soldiers are brought to their knees. Rapid explains that the aura is all of Helck's despair and anguish, because even Helck can't bear the pain of having to kill his loved ones. Helck removes the knight's helmet, and we see that it's Alicia. He apologizes for letting her suffer, promising to put an end to everything as he prepares to kill her. Vermilio suddenly understands his feelings, and the reason behind her own anxiety as she tries to stop him, but Rapid blocks her path, telling her that he won't let her interfere. He tells her that if she were truly his friend, she would let him be, because becoming a monster is the only way for him to let go of his pain. Vermilio tells him that Helck is strong, saying that he will finish what he started, and that she won't let him kill his friend. She pulls out a sword, cutting Rapid as she gets past him, and he realizes that Helck entrusted the hero slayer to her. He notices Helck's aura starting to fade, so he wonders if he was able to overcome his despair. Helck is about to finish Alicia off, but Vermilio unleashes a massive blast to get his attention, allowing Alicia to escape. Vermilio walks over to him, thinking that instead of offering him a place to stay in the Empire, she should have told him that they would save the humans. She reminds him that they are his beloved comrades, whom he shouldn't give up on no matter what, because as long as they're alive, they can find a way to save them together. She proclaims that she will save the humans without fail, and she realizes that the Great Witch was telling her to make the right choice by helping Helck, since he would never be able to smile again if he had to kill his own friends. Rapid interrupts her, saying that the mutated bodies and shattered minds can't be restored, but she says that there's no proof of that, and that she'll find a way. Rapid tries to break her resolve by telling her they killed Azudra and overtook the castle in the last battle, but Vermilio remains unaffected, saying that Azudra is the most tenacious man she knows, and that she has heard those words too many times to care, since he always comes back no matter what. We see that Azudra managed to survive, and Han and Esta are glad to see he's okay. Vermilio suggests that Azudra might know how to help them, since he adores humans and has been around for a long time. Rapid realizes that her resolve can't be broken, so he prepares to use Mika Rose's talisman to transform Alicia, but Helck steps in and is ready to fight him. He understands that Helck truly believes he can save them, and decides to retreat while telling him that no matter how much he struggles, it will be pointless in the end. After he leaves, Vermilio apologizes for trampling all over Helck's resolve, but he tells her that her words helped him release the feelings he had been suppressing, making him more determined than ever to save everyone. Vermilio tells the group that they are heading to Shin's castle next, where she suspects they'll find Azudra, and tells the spy to spread the message. The spy asks if Pee-wee can handle the toxins of the demon realm, so Harpy offers to go ahead and prepare a carriage for them with a barrier, while delivering her message to Azudra. Han and Ista report that they've confirmed Vermilio's safety, and informed Azudra of what happened at the base camp. We see them hand Vermilio's letter to him, and he's happy to see her determination to save the humans. We see Rocco arriving with the carriages, and Vermilio wonders how Azudra is doing. Rocco confirms that he survived, and Vermilio is relieved that she was right about not needing to worry about him. They prepare to continue on, and Helck is hopeful about what comes next. But that's where this series ends for now. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.